Yep, 3 minutes.
What is it?
Angela Conti, who I think took my job down in Marin, she talks about being a grant writer for the H&HS, is going to be interviewed by several members of our board. Adrian, Arlie, me, and Scott.
Hi, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine.
Oh, okay, good. How's it going? So there were some changes in the folks who are attending today. Is that what was going on?
Yeah, let me just put your name at the bottom of the, oh, there it is, okay. Yeah, we originally, Marion and Patrick and I and Scott were going to be on the call. And neither Marion or Pat can be on the call. Marion had an emergency and Scott had, unfortunately, his wife had scheduled a vacation and he took off and is on the road. So I put out the word saying, you know, help, I need some other people. And Arlie, who was our backup, and said, oh, sure, I'm here. So it was going to be Arlie and you and I and Scott. And with just 2 board members and 1 program manager, I figured it was on the, because the other guys really wanted, you know, to meet you and talk to you. So then I said earlier today, nah, it looks like we'll put it off. And then Adrian called and said, hey, I can substitute for Marion. So, you know, with 3 board members and a program manager, I figured, heck, you're going to get to know half the board and me, so why not, you know?
Okay.
So I'm hoping that they all come in. Arlie looks like she just did.
Yeah, I gotta move this around. I'm in shadow.
You guys have a board meeting tomorrow morning too?
Yeah, every Thursday.
Every Thursday?
Yeah, we meet and, you know, there are key issues around, we'll talk about them, but around cash flow, getting reimbursed by the county, and, you know, doing a whole lot of preparation for running villages, but not quite running villages right now. We will tell you the whole history and where it came from and where we are and what we're trying to do to transition from a fiscal year 1920 to a 2021 with 2/3 of the money that we have been given for this year, trying not to stay completely with just providing food service to, you know, quasi villages that look more like little prisons for our homeless, and moving into something that we have more control over and acts and feels like a, you know, somewhat of a self-governed, but a lot less, a lot more empowerment and a lot less designed to keep people out of the downtown or keep people from getting the virus, which is Sonoma County now just sort of filled with, you know, Findlay and Los Guillicos and, you know, Sonoma State, and none of it looks like a village to us, but all of it looks like, you know, the county and the city's attempt to try to figure out a way of getting people out of harm's way and downtown. That's the short answer to what we're wrestling with. We've got 60,000 bucks more to spend in the next month in order to be able to spend the complete 162,000 that we were given. You know, and I'm trying to spiff up the accounting system and make sure we can go through audits and stuff. We've always been the bad boys of, you know, the programs that have advocated for homeless. We're the one that got the lawsuit that stopped the cops. We're the people who, you know, bludgeoned the city into providing porta potties, and, you know, we're there in the beginning and, you know, tried to make sure that folks wherever they were healthy and, you know, not arrested. And, but now we're sort of half on the inside because we've got a grant and we're having to wrestle with, how much of an insider are we? How much of an outsider are we? Up and when can't we? What are board members' responsibilities for not pissing off the county? And, and we've, for the last couple of months, I've been holding my tongue just simply because I don't want to piss them off enough to have them, take the initiative of saying, okay, well, we're just not giving you more money. Because the money Scott is being very good at, figuring out ways of, giving direct assistance to a whole lot of people, which looks and feels like nothing the county has ever done before, fixing their RVs and trying to figure out a way of placing them on parking lots and figuring out ways of keeping safe parking, tiny homes and RV parking lots alive in the system. But at the same time, providing food service to things that look and feel like, quarantined and or prisoned homeless. Anyway, well, hope Adrian joins us. She and Scott. There's Scott coming in. I'm going to make sure, I'm going to send a little invite to Adrian saying, did you get confused? Are you coming
No,
in?
it's only 3:29.
That's true. She's good. Thank you, Arlie. I'm definitely a anxious folk to. Were you listening to what I was saying to Angela?
Yeah, and I was going to say, and then there's the capital campaign to raise money so we can do what we really want to do.
Now that's what I want to hear about, what you guys your dreams and aspirations are.
Well, did I send you the link to our website? Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
The website is all about, doing things other than what we've been talking about.
Angela, I just want to say that there's like a buzz, a feedback on your voice.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's only on yours. So.
Darn.
Yeah, can you hear it yourself?
No.
No.
But people have said.
It's like static. It's static.
Are you using the microphone in your computer? Yeah.
It says recording. Are you recording?
Yeah, yes, that's not you, that's us. When I set up the Zoom, it says, do you want to record it or not? I usually record it.
Okay.
But
I don't think that's interrupting. I don't think that's causing a buzz because it would be doing it to all of us.
Right. I'm wondering.
Do you want to back in? I can.
I know I have the external camera.
Let's see.
But I don't think I have an external mic. I think I'm stuck with I do have another computer.
Stop video, spotlight. There is usually something that says, ask participant to use video and audio. It's only video, so I can't help.
Well, no, mine asked me for both.
I know, but in this case, it only asked me for video.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Let's see.
Let me get the other computer.
Yeah, see if that.
We're still waiting for another person, right?
Pardon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh.
Boy, this little computer's camera only gives me black and white.
Really?
Well, no, there's a little bit of a tint, but it's very, very low level.
I'm in another another Zoom group wherein one of the people who come in is always black and white.
Oh.
I can't figure out how to get her other than, being sort of the 1950s television.
Maybe she's got a really old camera.
Maybe.
Or a setting.
I keep wanting to go over to her house and see if you can't do that in.
Yeah.
Shelter.
Scott, are you back to work now? Scott?
Yeah, he's been working all afternoon.
Oh, wait,
He's not on the call anymore.
Oh, I think he dropped off.
He did. I am going to send an invite to Adrian.
Okay.
Take a little bit for it to get going. The other computer to start up.
And then you have to log on again, right?
Right, yeah.
We're still waiting for Adrian.
I know.
Okay.
Send her an invite, but I'm going to call her.
I don't have anything else going on after this that I have to leave, so, you know.
Oh, that's good.
Hopefully we won't just dilly-dally for the whole time.
Hey,
Technology.
Scott, I'll dilly-dally with you. Are you at the,
Talk for yourself.
let's make an appointment, since that's the best way.
Hello, Adrian. We're back on the Zoom
Hi.
meeting. Bye-bye.
I guess Scott's not connected yet.
It didn't sound like Adrian. I wonder if I actually got the right number. Okay, we'll find out.
I'll call her home phone.
Who, Adrian?
Yeah. Did you call her home?
Just did, yeah.
Oh,
I think I called her cell phone, but give her a minute. She's probably coming in. I sent her the link.
oh, you did? Okay.
Hmm. She's usually faster than this. Why don't you call her?
I'm calling her home phone.
Good.
She's not answering.
You know, I talked to her earlier. There she is.
Okay, I'll hang up.
Hi, Adrian.
Hello. Hi, Arlie.
Hi.
We're working on Angela's audio because it was making static. And
She's moving to another computer.
Hi, everybody. I made it.
hey, thank you.
I left my computer for a few minutes to do dishes, and goodness sakes,
I
what
know.
happened?
You know, it's happening so quickly. It was like I had sent you an invitation, but then I thought, well, but I talked to her half an hour ago and said, no, it's not on. And then it was on and then not on.
So, hi, Angela. Or is she here? Hi.
It's been a while since we've seen each other.
So it has.
Way back when. I think it was before the fires.
I don't remember even meeting you, which is
Okay.
probably some major hole in my brain.
You don't have a hole in your brain.
Oh, I have many holes. It's like this cheese there, Harley.
Hey, guess what? I've just realized I'm old.
Oh my gosh. I never knew.
I realized that I'm older than who's the minister who spoke at the church last night.
Al Sharpton.
I'm older than Al Sharpton.
You are?
Yeah, it was like they gave his birth date, and it was like
Oh my gosh.
1954 or something.
Wow. Oh my gosh, I'm older than that too.
Oh yeah, Al, he's just such a baby.
Well, then I started looking up current living presidents, and I thought, well, I'm only a little bit younger than Clinton and George Bush, you know.
Well, there's still time to be president, Gregory. Just
Yeah.
keep trying.
Yeah, really.
Well, what's calling it, I have several friends who've died in the last week.
Really?
Oh,
Like, oh my God, you know.
Huh.
I'm sorry.
Mm.
Local folks.
That's why I don't have friends.
You know one of them, David Walls, right?
Oh yeah, David. Yeah, that's a huge loss.
Yeah.
Is he old?
He was old.
He never really acted old. I mean, he's always been pretty radical.
Yeah.
He had
Okay.
a really young face, David did. I mean, it was clear he was in his 70s or 80s or somewhere up in there, but he just looked like a child, like a young boy. He had that boyish energy.
Yeah.
Okay. Angela, have you say something so we can figure out if the static's still there?
The difficulty I'm having is the other computer is asking me to sign in with my code, and my code is not working for some reason, so it's taking a little bit longer. Is there anything?
Well,
Can you understand what I'm saying, even with the buzz, the feedback?
oh yeah, I can understand you clearly. And I was trying to think of, so how much are you going to be talking as opposed to us? And because I clearly remember you sent a lot of really good questions, and I tried to answer as much as possible. And we sent you to the website. And before any of these people showed up, except Arlie, you and I had a little sort of downloading of at least a few pieces of information about where we are. But I sort of figured that, yes, I want to keep the meeting going, even with the static, because I think we can communicate. And I
Okay.
want to make sure that other board members who may or may not know you or not can both hear, who you are from you and what your interests are, and to also answer your questions about
Okay.
board membership and what it's all about.
Okay.
So I vote for going forward
Yeah, me too.
and
And then at some point you might be able to get on the other computer, or is that not happening now? Just curious.
Well, I'd have to focus on figuring out why my code's not working.
Oh,
Well, I don't know. If
I
you
don't
use,
even know
if
if it's any better.
Angela, did you use the link that Greg sent? Because I don't think you need the code for that. Does it, Greg?
No, it shouldn't. I took off the passcode, so. How about if I try one thing? I'm going to send you, Angela, another, clear email with the link in it, and let's just see if a new link and a new way in helps out. The worst case scenario is you'll have the same.
Yeah.
And then, Greg, sometimes it doesn't want you to join a meeting you're already in.
Yeah,
You have to get out of it in order to get into that other.
Yeah.
the thing is, I can't get into my, on the new computer, it won't let me get into my mailbox.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm gonna have to type
No, I think
it in directly, which I can.
stay on this one because it sounds like the difficulty of getting into the new one, given the fact that it's no guarantee it's going to solve the problem,
yeah.
may take up half the time we've got here.
Okay.
I think Scott was having his hand in the air a minute ago.
Hey, Scott.
Oh, I just look with continuing, that's all.
All right. Okay, so let me start, Angela, by asking you, and let me point out, we have two people who are, we've contacted for candidacies, and they both have Conti as the last name. So Diane Conti and Angela Conti, we're not going to be confused by you, but I almost did by saying Diane.
Who's the shadowy figure over on the right?
That's Scott.
That's Scott.
But Scott's over on the left.
No, he's on my right.
Well, there's two of them.
There's
Anyway.
two of him. He's clowned.
Okay.
Yeah, I think that's why I was late. I'm just having trouble with my Zoom on my computer. So I think it's got me connected, but it's not giving me the page.
Well, we see you.
You have to deal with me in the phone.
We see you both places.
Yeah, okay. Well, great.
But you're better where you're talking from. Well,
Okay.
I don't know.
So let's move forward. Let me ask Angela, you gave me a bunch of questions and I tried my best to answer them and I sent it out to everybody. Is there anything you want to add to what you provided us to as to your background, your interests, why you're on a call with us and why you're interested in being on our board? And then second to that, do you have some other serious questions about being on the board and what it means? I want to sort of let you have the first take on telling us about yourself before we try to answer your questions and or tell you about ourselves.
Yeah. Well, about myself, let's see. What I did was I went and I read through everybody's bios, which were really impressive. And I was thinking, wow, I don't know if I bring any real specialties to the table, but I don't know what I have, whether I have things to bring to the table until I know what it is you guys are looking for, because I think my experience is really pretty scattered. And I'll tell you right now, I'm not much of a joiner. Boards and stuff, I have worked for mostly, and I know what makes a good board work and what doesn't make a good board work from the perspective of somebody having to get things done. And I've been on boards, but mostly as my real board experiences with a housing authority as a resident member, and we were managed through oh my gosh, I'm spacing the union, the national CIO. Do you know which?
SEIU?
No, the largest national.
AFL.
I can't think, but anyway, it's really large union organizing, like the largest one in the U.S. I can't think of their name
Well,
right now.
isn't that the AFL-CIO?
Yes, thank you. They were our team management coordinators for our group, and that was as a resident member. And then what I did here in Sonoma County was as a for the Wine County, their funding board. And so I have a little bit of participation in those ways, but as I said, most of it has been working for board.
What's your background in work? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, it's early on, it was a career in youth organizations administration, YMCA, Boys and Girls Clubs of America, grants department for Marin County Youth Commission, things like that. And then I went on to college. When I came out of college, I had studied art and psychology. When I came out, I had an entirely new career as a theater set and lighting designer, and traveled all over the country. And a fledgling career, I landed in Connecticut, getting ready to go back to graduate school, and became sick. And I didn't have a support system. I didn't have health care. I didn't have, I was on my own, and was introduced to the public social services system.
Oh.
And after years of struggling there, within trying to maintain a life, I ended up moving back here to back here to California, Sonoma County, where I was born and raised. and had family at the time. But since then, my father has passed and my mother moved to Oregon, and I've been spending the last about 13, 14 years now just surviving and finding meaning and purpose through community advocacy for other people who are struggling with the system and just getting by. So basically, that's kind of my background. I spent about a year volunteering with Catholic Charities and getting Saskia Bondant, her program, up and going for grants department. And from there, I moved on and began volunteering for Michael over at the county continuum of care, and spent again just under a year there. I left there 2 weeks with plans to move to the county behavioral health services when the fires broke out.
Oh, wow.
And at that point, I just sort of pulled out and there was so much chaos at that time. And I just knew that all this funding was going to come in for housing because we were going to have to rebuild. And some of that was going to trickle down. I just didn't know how much or how everything was going to pan out, where the focus was going to be. Seems to me like not enough focus went to trickle down to the bottom, far enough to the bottom.
Yeah, really.
And things. I haven't been thrilled, but it was really mostly just pretty chaotic, and I pulled out. And my focus then became something called SoCo Eco Village, which was a shared, not necessarily co-housing, but a shared housing development that was all-inclusive, or anybody who wanted to participate, that I was going to support people on getting HUD housing to be able to build a tiny home in this community. So that's what I've been working on since the first fires. But last year, that didn't manifest itself to the level that I wanted. And through all this, I've been struggling with my own health issues. So there's a lot of different areas. I do follow the issues as much as I can, both nationally, what's happening, and housing and supportive services, but also locally. It's been going on, but a lot's been going on locally, and I wish that I was as up to it, knowing the ins and outs specifically of where everybody's at right now, but I'm not. So that brings me to my question, and that's how you guys got my name and got interested in me. I did do a series of articles for the Gazette, but this was before the fires. And a series of...
I remember those.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and I remember thinking, oh, somebody who knows a lot.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So I wondered if that was it. And I also, I generally have attended anything that was free and open to the community in terms of seminars and bringing in speakers and trying to develop community dialogue. The various, Santa Rosa and so many, I can't even remember them all. So I kind of popped up at those kinds of things too. So, but yeah, how did you guys find out about me?
I seem to remember Gregory saying that, having your name.
Yeah, I was, and I have to admit, there with the two Contis, I won't say confusing because I'd heard of both of them, but I was confusing who was doing what.
Gregory, you look like a 4-year-old at the table. Can you just move your screen so we can see your whole face? That's good, thanks.
Okay, thanks. Yeah, no.
Improve your lights.
Because both of them have worked in Marin. Angela with Marin Boys and Girls Club and other things that related to the commission. And at the same time I was working in Marin, she was working in the same agency, only working for the, our youth commission, which long ago I was actually on. And the other one, Diana, was working in Marin for some of the agencies I funded. So, but I knew of both of them, and I wanted to make sure they both had, introductions to both of you, because they both seem like really high level, knowledgeable people who, however they got the knowledge, were passionate. And I had actually checked into Angela with some people I knew from long ago, and they gave me sort of the simple version of what Angela's just given me about her trajectory. And I continue to be impressed.
Thank you. Well, I'm really impressed with you guys because, when the fires hit, I bailed. I thought this is too much chaos for me. And I wasn't really excited by the input that I was having within the community. When I started getting involved with homeless issue, I was really pushing for supportive services, housing first and all these kinds of things. And it seemed like a lot of, I'd go to meetings and a lot of organizations were dragging their feet on the basics, just getting people housed, getting people off the street. And I didn't feel like my voice was being heard as a community member. And I think that's what attracted me to you, Gregory, was that we met at, I think was it the Santa Rosa or the county? We did a roundtable workshop together, and your energy was like, let's fucking get something done. And I knew that it was abrasive and probably receiving a lot of pushback. And but you had been at this for a lot of years, and that's what mattered. That you had, all of you guys, Adrian too, who I met at something downtown at the Grace Center.
Oh, at the Unitarian Center.
Remember that? It was sort of a workshop-y thing.
Yeah, maybe.
You're right that we're a collection of older folks with experience in a variety of ways who haven't given up yet and are basically weathering the pushback that you described, but collectively keeping each other together and moving forward. That's how I would describe us. But
yeah, and like I said, I'm not a joiner by nature. I'm a very independent person, and so my voice is going to come from not wanting to make friends necessarily, but just telling how I see it and where I think focus needs to be and where discussion needs to continue, things like that. And so I can come across as abrasive as well because I'm not always thoughtful about the feelings and concerns of the other people who I might be speaking to.
Well, that's you and me both.
Okay, yeah. Because the back of my mind is there's fucking people out there who are homeless who need help.
Right.
So you and your feelings getting hurt. So if you respond to that kind of thing, that kind of attitude,
I don't think anybody on this call is afraid of you saying those things. The other thing I think that you bring to this, if the question is, what do you really bring to us? I'm impressed with the fact that you've been in everybody's territory that we deal with. I mean, you worked a little bit for Catholic Charities, you worked a little for CDC, you know, you've been on this, you know, basically on the street as close as you can be to being on the street. Those kinds of things give you insight and give you back, you know, understanding of the struggles that any agencies go through to try to get something done.
And did I mention that I spent 4 years living in my car?
No, I don't think
4
you did
years.
that. That's
Wow.
a
I
long
still
time.
can't believe.
That's a very
Yeah.
long.
It's doable, man. It's doable. But you know, it's not a choice.
Yeah.
I was young and I rationalized it as a choice, but nobody chooses to if they have other options.
Well, I chose to, I did choose to live in my van for a few years.
Right. And the whole mental health is this other huge component that comes into it. I do suffer from depression and anxiety, but it's well managed, and so I understand. I have friends who have greater struggles with mental health than I'll ever have. So I try to be sympathetic there, but yeah, you know, all this stuff happening with the protesting, you know, for me everything comes back down to the economics of it and how we value or disvalue human life and other people. And there's a lot of stressors out there that we all have to deal with. And if we're not support systems for each other, you know, and housing is a shelter is a basic human right that's necessity for survival to begin with, you know, and so there's multiple layers that I think are really important. And so I want to find out how you guys are approaching these multiple layers and where you're finding your focus leading you.
So let me just give you a minute of what we are as a board and what our team is right now that we're asking you to consider joining in. Because if you've worked for a board, this is not that kind of board. That's the board we want to be in a few years. But right now we're the board that has to do all the work of setting up this organization. Marion often says this is a startup company. So there are some basics setting up things, but it's really more of it's a working board. And so we've hired Scott to work full time. We've hired a couple of outreach workers, 3 outreach workers. We've hired a chef, which means that those of us except for Scott on this call, we don't have to go out and do the day-to-day stuff in the way that we used to when we were more of homeless action. But we still have to do a lot to right now, so to reach our goal. And you know, your background is kind of perfect because you come with an eclectic lot of skills, but more so than I think what Gregory was saying is this experience in the system, outside the system, in the system, outside the system. And I think a lot of us have some of that stuff already. But that's what powers us. You know, that's what says, okay, well, how are we going to get through this hurdle? Let's put our heads together and talk about what's the strategy. What do we know? Who do we know? How do we know that this works? And what can we do? We meet once a week for about 3.5 hours. And then we go off and pretty much everybody works in between. We don't just come to the meetings. And people tend to get projects or things that they're focused on. But all of us need help with all of our projects pretty much. So we'll ask you to do things and then you'll say yes or no, I don't want to do that, or I will, or whatever. And you can stick your toe in the water and see how it feels. And But our goal right now, and our goal for, you know, we came out of Homeless Action, which was let's just help homeless people. Let's get something going here. And over about 5 or 6 years, this whole idea of let's put up these villages, little tiny house villages, RV villages, because we saw how expensive it was to build housing, how time consuming it was. And we saw that there were all these people, 2,000 people on the street. And there was such a gap between these two, the people on the street and the, you know, 10-year plan, or the, oh, we got money, we're going to fund some upper bank project. There'll be 30 people in a home. Yay. And it just felt like that we were never, ever really getting the bulk of people safe. And then, of course, we got involved in the policing part, that people were being run around. There's been 5 or 6 sweeps since we started this whole thing. And just seeing how traumatic that is. Like, people should be able to have somewhere where they're not being hassled by the cops.
Yeah, yeah.
So we put in a bunch of proposals. We got our first chunk of money from the CDC last, was it April? No, it was January. We got it in January. $160,000, which is how we were able to hire these folks. But the CDC won't let us put that money into a leasing a property. So we're still working around the edges doing, right now because of COVID, we're sending out food to everybody once a day. Not everybody, 200 or 300 meals a day. And then we have someone over at SSU, I think you may know what that there's homeless people over there in a dorm. And she's the activities director. So she's basically there to help people get along and be okay being
She's
out there.
One of your guys?
Yeah, she's one of our guys. There's about 4 people from various agencies that work over there, and about 70 people in the dormitory. So that's what we do with our money, and we're about to finish that contract. And now for the next year, we've got a similar contract, but it's been cut by a third, as all county contracts have been, because they got less money. So now we're in a place of like figuring out what are we going to do next year. And we'll probably continue to do the stuff we're doing now through the summer, depending on what happens with COVID and the FEMA money. And, you know, they may close SSU down. Right now, we're sort of at the beck and call of the Emergency Operations Center. And that's who's saying, you know, go out there and spend this money on food and so on. Mm-hmm. But on the other hand is we still want to do a village. So we're about to start a capital campaign for about $60,000, $100,000, 60 to 100, which will allow us to lease a piece of property and set up a village. And we're pretty confident if we have the money, we have the planning. We had a piece of property that fell through. We already had done work with the planning department at the city of Santa Rosa, and we were pretty far along with it. So it felt like having the property is the barrier. And if we get the money to lease the property, you know, it'll still be hard, but it'll be so much easier than sitting in a room talking.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's what we're doing.
Been there, tried that with the SoCo Eco Village. You know, we really just kept running into there's a lot of coordination issues within the group itself, but the major focus was how to land the property in order to get any additional fundings and getting anything else moving, you know, and it's sort of that.
And so did that project stop, or is it on pause? What's going on with it?
Yeah, it's on pause. There's a lot of interest in it, but I think that it's falling back into that place that, you know, the people that are going to have to finance it are going to have homes that they can sell, or they're going to have big pocket books of money to pay it. Like how many of them get developed, because we just don't have it within the government system to support that kind of affordable housing development, you know, the shared stuff. So
like
Angela, I wanted to ask you, did you, is there any public information about that Eco Village that people could access?
Yeah, there used to be a website, but that's closed right now, and there's just the Facebook page.
Oh. And are those people still doing other things about Eco Village types of things?
Those other people is me. Yeah, the group sort of exploded. There was some internal fighting.
Money.
Well, mostly it was power.
Really?
There was a power grab made.
Yeah.
And I was really surprised as hell because I was the only one doing anything. You know?
Did you actually have some land in mind?
Yeah. We were really focused on that because there were enough people who could put the down payments in and
Wow.
lock down the property itself, and then move forward with figuring out. We were talking with banks on how to manipulate the mortgages for how we would have to build and design based on accessing these mortgages. Some banks were willing to work with us, and I did a lot of research on that. And
Did you look in? Did you look into community land trust ownership or running?
Right. Yeah. We're looking at that. Really love the guys in Oakland. The law center there. Yeah, they had really great.
They're very organized. Yeah, I'm familiar with their stuff.
Yeah, and then the group in Petaluma
and
and things. So yeah, it seemed like things were slowly kind of moving in that direction, but I don't think it was my first attempt at trying to organize something like that on my own. And I wanted to make it available and accessible to anybody and everybody. So a lot of people just love the idea of shared living, but they wanted it all done for them. and then and said, I can do this better. And
wow.
Yeah. Anyway.
Well,
so how do I find you on Facebook?
Or is it you group, or is it the group or the organization?
There's a group called SoCo Eco Village.
Oh.
And I have like a half a dozen Facebook pages and groups. Add it all together, it's over 4,000 followers.
Wow.
But if you connect with me, Angela Conti, I think it's 1980. Angela Conti 1980, I think it's the, I can send you invites and connections to the different things that I do on there.
Yeah.
But my largest group on there is Rational Thinking Network, where it's a politically based group that just reposts information on politics, national politics. I also have another one that might interest you, though, is on politics, is Santa Rosa Sonoma County Forum for Building and Development. There's also another one that's not real active, but it's the Sonoma County for housing. The housing thing was really was picking up, but as I said, I kind of moved away from that, so it's not as active right now. But yeah, just connect with me, my personal profile, and I can get you to all these other pages that I do.
Great, thank you.
Well, it looks like you still keep up the SoCo Eco Village. It's still pretty active with you, anyway.
Yeah. It's a great place to just post. I mean, even during the shelter in place right now, it's just, you really get a sense of there's a large community of people out there who want that simple shared living lifestyle that's economically affordable but adds more value to quality of life.
Yeah.
And so I post everything from healthy meal preparation to a great, I just posted this wonderful thing on how to dye with natural dyes from your home.
Oh,
Fabric dye. I mean, just all kinds of fun things. So it's a pretty,
yeah.
Dye meaning D-Y-E, not D-I-E, right?
Yeah, right.
No,
Like onion skins and beets.
right.
Angela, this
Amazing stuff out there.
has a strange tone to me because it's almost like a mergers and acquisition. Much of what you've been doing is parallel and consistent with the things I think we've been doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sure is.
Yeah, I do feel a little bit scattered, but when I really take it all together, I think there is a real generalized place that I'm coming from. I haven't quite figured out how to define it exactly, but it has to do with inclusivity, where we give back to support our community and all those in it, so that we can build better communities for ourselves.
Right.
And that touches on all sorts of areas, whether it's a social community or housing and shelter and the basics. But how do we respond to our political system where the police are being militarized?
Yep.
And here we don't, because our numbers are different compared to an inner city community. We don't have a lot of people of color and Black people here, but we have a lot of similar economic issues. And so the reality is, if we can all just, keep focus on bringing everybody on board.
Right. We do have a lot of brown people.
Yes, we do.
Like I think 23% of Latino now is population. But
Wow.
you're right. And I often say when I'm talking in public that I want to live by poor people. I don't want this to be a rich town where only rich people come on vacation or live here. I like poor people. I like working class people. And so that's in my background of, let's keep Sonoma County so some of us can continue to stay here. And that starts with homeless people.
And what that means is, to me, let me just give you a little 30-second. I'm also involved with my wife in a group called Santa Rosa Together, which is trying to get more civic engagement in the planning process of the general plan and charter review and district elections and lots of other things, which are a broader target group than homeless. But the synchronicity of it is so clear that if we, are going to keep Santa Rosa livable, we've got to be designing low-cost homes. We've got to figure out a way. So it has a spin-off called, Housing for All, and it conducted the homeless tax. We had a homeless talk program, which tried to get people to talk about how they feel about an important issue. So a lot of us have, the trouble of being so scattered with our ambitions, but trying to keep it focused on at least nonprofits we're on the boards of, or causes we're supporting, or things we do. And it is hard, right now I was almost writing a little Facebook thing that said basically, it's hard to have an overwhelming issue like racism and not have it take over the missions of every nonprofit. Right now the revolution is happening, and it's basically everybody, and I know, is trying to figure out how they take their organization, which has perfectly good ambitions, and fashion it to end racism. And it's like, it's okay, so how much more can we load on ourselves and not complete craziness, out of our own ability to survive and our ability to do good for others. That's just the thought I've been having in the last day or two,
And like I said earlier, I always bring it around to economics. And I can, as a white woman, cannot speak for the experience of a Black man living in America today. I can hear their stories and I can sympathize, but I'm not living it. And yet, my mind goes to, if we find distribution of resources more fairly among all people, that we can lift each other up. And if we stop using Black people as, labor and fodder for prisons, and that whole economic, I mean, if there was value put in other people's lives, and Black lives matter, that, that's how we end the racism, is to give economic opportunity and support equally along all, and stop using people as slave labor. I mean, there's this, internal system there that needs to stop and needs to end. So there's real specifics where change can be made within, systemic change can be made, where the issue of the dynamics of race. Well, anyway, that's a whole nother. I don't want to say anything, that there's been so many discussions going on about that issue right now, because it's so powerful and so significant. People are dying, and this needs to change. And this is wonderful, because this kind of energy is where the change comes from. So
Well, I was wrong about us talking to you, because you spent an awful lot of this time talking to us, and I very much appreciate that. I've clearly understood you, and there hasn't been any problem with the static, so I'm glad we pursued it. And what I actually want to ask you is, have you learned, how has it been for you, this conversation? Have you gotten any clearer on your questions about what it is we expect out of you and who we are?
Yeah, I think that my biggest concern coming to this conversation today was how well organized and planned are you, and that what are your expectations of what you're looking for from board members, and will I be able to meet those needs? And it seems to me that that's, from our discussion, is all very still open and up in the air, and you're in a formative state, so that what I bring, I do see areas where I can definitely fit in and help support, and be of value, and hopefully may not hinder things in any way, but also see where my input can support your growth. That makes any sense. I do see spots where things are morphing a little bit, so morph and flow, and I can sort of fit in. Things aren't really concrete yet, so where I'm going to either fit in or not, but there's room for mutual growth.
Mm-hmm.
That
there's a lot of collective work that we do together with each other. I can tell you there's a lot of emails. There's the meeting we have every week, probably 3 hours. There's a lot of talking, a lot of sharing about how we feel about things. Whether or not we're a working, as Adrian described it, it's perfect. We are a working board, meaning that we can't just sit around and, you know, give major guidance to a bunch of staff. That's not happening. We may never get a lot of staff to make us so that we're just giving policy an hour a month. That kind of nonprofit that I also sit on isn't where we are now, because we're not getting a lot of support from anybody financially, and we're not having a lot of successes enough to be able to say, come on and join us as a volunteer. The volunteers we have come right out of their guts about being homeless, or being a volunteer who's cooking a meal for a homeless, or who's been there, got a little money, and wants to help out. And it is chaos, because we don't have really stable program components that we can say, here's where you go and volunteer.
Well, I just want to say that
Hold on, Arlie's got
I just want to say that
quite a while.
we do have quite a backlog of editorial document work, and we have a lot of documents on our G drive that either don't belong in the mainstream of the drive, and it would take a lot of organizing of all of the stuff on the G drive to get it into a place where, for example, a regular nonprofit would have a nice manual and you could look through everything up, but we're still in the process of using examples and customizing and creating documents that are required by our funders.
Yeah, there's a lot of administrative support that we could use in and around, online, and in and around an office we now have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what about your funding and grant writing and things? Because I do have a lot of experience with that.
We could definitely use support in that. One of our challenges is every once in a while somebody says, hey, there's a $10,000 grant from the United Way of North Bay. Do you want to go for it? And Adrian has been the yeoman of at least trying to respond to those things. It's how we got into the business of getting CDC money. We had a bunch of grant writing brilliance long ago because we knew what we wanted to do. But there will be other grants coming out, and we're either going to do it or not.
Let me interrupt you. When we start doing our campaign, that's when we're going to start working on really going after grants. It's small or large. Because what's clear to us is, having worked with the CDC for 5 months now, 6 months, we do not want to be tied to their funding forever. It's a great add-on, but it's so restrictive in so many ways. So getting our own money is a big push, I think, in the next year.
Yeah.
And Arlie's right. There's a lot of, let's go back behind us and do the housekeeping and make sure that we're solid in this way and that way. And let's track down, we gave that person an RV. Did we do the title right? Did we get that detail correct? There's just a lot of that kind of stuff. And it's
Another
fun. It's a great team to work with, I would say. And in my experience, people are very self-motivated and independent. They do their work. They come back, report on it. We just got a new board member who put us together a new website, but he's also done all of this other kind of stuff.
Yeah.
To make it, the donations are right and the volunteer thing is right. And so it's a pleasure to work with this team. I get up every morning and kind of go, oh, it's too much. It's too much. And then, I get an email from Arlie and things are okay again. And
Yeah, right.
well, it's true though. It's good. It's a good feeling.
Yeah.
And we're about an hour into this, and Scott hasn't really said anything, so I wanted to make some space for him.
That's been
Well, thank you. It's nice to meet you, and your background is really cool and broad. I like a lot of times when the board speaks, it's my perspective is often is colored by the specific operational requirements that we have right now. And so my mind goes back to that a lot. I appreciate what Arlie said about administrative requirements. And I know just from my experience with small businesses that this crew is pretty good with admin. I mean, and I think Arlie can genuinely and healthily disagree with that because she has a bar that is set higher than most entrepreneurs that I've dealt with. And but I'm not going to show you the office because there's just piles of papers everywhere, and you know, so I've got a fair amount to do. But my focus right now is on food, and the reason why I've tried to focus the operations really hard on food is because the COVID virus came and it became clear that was probably our highest and best use to get food out to the extent that we could. We had just started a relatively small project with Los Gillicos taking on food because I wanted to make sure that when villages come, that we're ready with food. Because when I toured around in the Northwest and looked at villages, food was a huge problem. It overwhelmed the operations, and the people that had done the most villages said that it was the single part that was affecting them the most and caused them the most problems, and the thing that they underestimated. And I found myself, before I went up there, I did the same thing. I just said to myself, well, we'll have charities come in and take care of food. And, so I'm discovering that the food business, just like the food business that I was once in when I owned a business, is for me personally is kind of a living hell, because it is so much work. It's exacting. It's you know, you're getting old food and you're supposed to not poison people with it, and you have to do it 7 days a week. And there's an Iron Chef mentality that seeps into everything and everybody, no matter whether they're an Iron Chef or a Tin Chef, and all those things. And the reason going into this so much is to just get across that to build a village healthily that's going to help a lot of people involves case management, it involves food, it involves real estate, it involves fundraising, right? And I'm missing 5 or 6 other things just off the top of my head. And Saves is committed to doing all those things really well. And I'm committed to doing the parts that I'm involved in really, really well, because I don't want to let these people down. We have this vision where we assume and assert that the villagers, to a large extent, can manage their own lives. And we believe that. We believe that strongly and philosophically. It drives us. It gets us up in the morning. My life right now, operationally, is a testament to how that's possible, but really, really difficult. And knows that. And we work on the different pieces because we see a vision for self-managed villages. We understand that that's not some kind of key, liberal mindset that all we have to do is just kind of unleash these people's future and just get rid of the police and everything is just going to be fantastic. That's not at all how we think about this. We understand that self-management is going to require strong consultation, it's going to require strong resources, and it's going to require these ancillary expertises like food, like security, like real estate, property management, and and just plain building skills, as well as the very significant political capabilities that we need to build as a team. So, as I listen to your background, I don't really know you well, obviously, but if you can if you can get your head around the idea of promoting and helping people to self-manage within villages that are good for them and healthy places, you know, that are a little bit days of our lives from dusk till dawn, but that provide people a place that is comfortable and safe and cost effective. You know, that's where we're trying to go. So far, I mean, I do want to say, kind of as a whatever you'd say, you know, reading a contract's fine print. So far, we've been kind of spectacularly unsuccessful with this government, and I, for one, am really, really tired and frustrated at the government's inability to work with us. For instance, when they set this Los Gillicos village up, they didn't consult us. When they set Finley up, they didn't consult us. And both of those approaches are really flawed from our standpoint. And we have spoken with them at length about self-management, and they have consistently ignored us. We need that to change. We have to affect that change politically, you know, as well as administratively, bureaucratically. And I feel that responsibility. I think my role changes a lot over the next month or so. Our shop goes down. Adrian mentioned that our budget went down by 1/3. That's not really what happened. What happened is that we were given $160,000 to spend in 5 months, and then we were given $112,000 to spend for the next 12 months. So our monthly budget went down by over 2/3. And I've only had to hire, you know, because I was prudent with hiring, I only have to get rid of 3 people who have long known that their work ends June 30th. But, you know, our opportunities really changed with that money going away. And fortunately, we've been able to plan from the beginning, so it's not a surprise, and it doesn't transform us horribly. You know, we're not wrenched into something else. Our main 4 people are still going to be working full time along with me, and but a lot of us are, we in a way, operationally, I think it's fair to say, and board, you can correct me if you like, but we're preparing and we're waiting for a destiny of supporting and helping people to do villages in volume, you know, to get people off the streets and get them in places where they have a modicum of control over their own lives, and we can facilitate the rest for them, you know, as a result of raw need and trauma and mental disease and the other dimensions that impinge upon the self-management model in important ways.
Thank you. You said a lot of important things, and I've got one more thing to say, which is that you have this degree in psychology, and that is something that comes up every day with people we want to work with, and so that may end up being your area, really, because at this point we don't have another expert in that. You know, we all know what we know and do what we do and bring a certain amount of social abilities with things, but you know, Scott said that's a major piece, and I'm going to really disagree with you, Scott. It is not it's not days of our lives. It's all my family.
Well, I think I understand you, Scott, in terms of, to me, that I think what happens is there's this disconnect between the ideal and the reality. And lots of people have this desire to create tiny communities because they're affordable, and you put people in them, that solves the problem. But the reality is, you know, the expectations as adults, even children, you know, you want everybody to feel that they have an impact in the quality of their life and their social environment. That's empowering. Everybody needs to work towards that. That doesn't mean that everybody that's coming into the community are going to have the skills and knowledge and abilities to make that happen for themselves. And we wouldn't expect that for socially functioning, high functioning people. So to expect that the folks who are so disengaged socially in many ways being put into a living community are going to have all the skills necessary to dictate how that works for themselves. You know, it's crazy to expect that, but it's necessary to work towards that. Something I'm wondering about when Scott was speaking about the administrative process and the organization process. Do you have offices?
We have one office
We have,
with one key.
yeah, we just, yeah.
Okay, so that's great. That's an office. And I
The
guess
storage, we have a storage area.
shelter in
We have a
place.
What?
We have a storage area that hangs off of that. We have about a 10 foot by 10 storage area and a little room with a bunch of, like a large file folder drawer. And then our office is about 10 by 15. And it'll probably be with stuff too, to be stored. So we have a fair amount of storage space, I guess. And then, yeah, room for a couple to sit in. And we have an administrative person that's part of staff and myself, and we'll probably be here a lot. And then others will come to pick food and pick up supplies and things that are kept here.
Okay. And for your online communications, do you have something specific that you're using currently, or I mean, for planning and organizing?
Well, we have a new newest board member who comes from the corporate community marketing, and he's very sharp and he's very fast. He's led us into a lot of different areas that we haven't been familiar with. We have MailChimp, we have he's created the Facebook and the website, updated them, and we have a graphic artist who helps with a lot of things. So yeah,
Okay.
getting there.
All right. Good. Yeah.
But no, we don't use a project management or any kind of wiki-based system for organizing as a group. We have right now, as I mentioned, there are kind of 5 core people, a project assistant, myself, and then a chef and 2 outreach people. The 2 outreach people, one works full-time on food and the other is at SSU. So there's actually the coordination requirements are not the same as a lot of organizations. We kind of have three groups, I guess I would say, operationally that are going on.
Okay.
And the board communication so far is a lot of email and a G drive that I try to use that I'm hoping we can store PDFs of documents, and the accountant who we have, Fawn Moran, and I and Scott are sort of sharing how do we try to document everything we're doing and put it up on the G drive. And those file drawers that he mentioned are ripe for putting stuff in files that make it so that even if the entire internet goes down, we can survive audits and we can have documents that people can look at and say, you're real. Our agendas, our minutes, our corporate documents, all that stuff needs to be in a place which can survive. And so we're poised to do all of that good stuff. And I think that we need help, and we could use your help. And it would be, I was going to add physical and behavioral health are the 2 things that Scott, has said from the beginning we don't have on our board. We don't have anybody who can relate to those communities. And I wanted to say that we sort of relate to the physical health because the director of health services is the person who signs our contracts for these things, Barbie Robinson. And Bill Turner, the guy who heads mental health, was the guy who started most of the, supportive services, supportive housing in the county. And those two people are reachable. We just need to do a better job of, making what we do apparent to them.
Right. Yeah.
Administratively, I did want to say that our accountant is really good. She's just fabulous, and she's very organized and a good communicator, nice and blunt. Gregory has a lot of experience in nonprofit finance, which is super helpful. And I've done a lot of finance. I have an MBA with a quantitative finance emphasis, and done a lot of even research work in accounting. So, I wouldn't say we're good there, because right now we're just kind of flailing. But once we, after June 30th, our budget goes down to where we're kind of 87% staff, and there's just not the real challenge there that we've had this year, trying to ramp up and hire up, and then figure out how budgetarily to take our money from $30K a month down to $8K a month.
But we're still going to be doing things that are going to challenge the norms of an accounting system. When we buy RVs and fix them up and give them to people, it's sort of like, so whose asset is that, and how do you relate to that? And there are a whole lot of things that we do that hardly anybody else does, and so that's a tweak that we need to figure out how to deal with, and how to be survivable if anybody comes in and says, no, you can't do that, or yes, you can do that, but only because you've got enough documentation to,
Right.
our world. So
Yeah.
those are some of the issues, but it doesn't stop us from doing things that we think are needed. It's just, we got to figure out some kind of a backstory, some kind of a process. So we talk a lot.
Okay, I am anxious to stop and go to the other things of my day. Angela, anything else that's on your mind or questions?
Yeah, I just want to say that, if you guys want to go off and think about this and make me a clear offer at a later time, that's fine. I personally feel like after our conversation, there's still lots of questions, but that's because answers are being formed. And so there's lots of opportunities, and I feel excited by this idea of contributing, working with you guys. So I would probably be right on board if you wanted to, after discussing this, amongst yourselves, and wanted to make a later.
Well, we have to go back to the full board and make a recommendation. And my recommendation is definitely to take you up on your offer, and everyone else on this little committee will have their recommendation. But our board meeting is tomorrow morning, so probably tomorrow afternoon you'll get some kind of an email or a phone call.
Okay.
And I'm thrilled you're interested. That gives me a lot of, to attract quality people like yourself and have them say yes is one of the best, most gratifying things. It makes me feel like, okay, we're doing all right. we're not, it's hard, but we're doing all right. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's
right.
great. Thank you so much for allowing us to grill you.
Yeah, that too.
Okay.
To grill us.
Yeah, right.
Bye.
Okay.
Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye-bye.